Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time on this Friday, this beautiful, lovely day here in Atlantic City at Stockton's brand new campus. They did a fantastic job with this campus, so thank you so much for attending the Stockton Women's Leadership Council's fall series. My name is Christina Stummer. I am the chair of the Stockton Women's Leadership Council. I'm a proud Stockton alum, graduated in 1998 from the Environmental Science Department. I am a partner with the law firm of Saul Ewing, Arnstein & Lair, practicing environmental law. So your education at Stockton actually is worth something to all those students and alumni that are here today. So thank you so much for joining. Today we have the honor of featuring 5 inspiring local women who have made significant achievements in their fields and are leading change in our community. But before we introduce them, I want to first thank all the Stockton Women's Leadership Council members that are here today. If you wouldn't mind, could you please stand up and acknowledge yourselves so we can say thank you for coming. This group of dedicated women inspire us daily. In addition to their daily jobs, they volunteer on boards and other ventures. They're building the framework for the Stockton Women's Leadership Council, which seeks to celebrate women. And really, what could be more joyous than women supporting one another, sharing ideas, and identifying new opportunities? The Leadership Council serves as a platform to celebrate women and amplify their voices of those who lead with strength and perseverance and continue to pave the way for women today. And so I want to say that for purposes of the dedication that we've been putting into this council for the last year plus, there's a couple folks in the room who have been dedicated to this achievement, especially Dr. Johnson, who will speak in a little bit, but also Alicia has done a great job. Kim's here as the vice chair of the organization. Also, Roxanne is part of the Stockton Women's Leadership Council, and she's part of the board. We give a lot of time to this. It's a volunteer organization, and it's meant basically to give back to the community, to celebrate, empower, and escalate women in the community. So we are focused on 3 key initiatives, which is mentoring, engagement, and paying it forward. This past spring, we ran a successful pilot of our mentoring program with 4 mentors and mentees. This fall, we were excited to welcome an additional 12 mentees and 11 mentees to the program, mentors to the program. As part of the program, these 12 Stockton students will receive they will receive guidance, instruction, networking, personal opportunities, and also just development in their careers moving forward. So lastly, we look for ways to pay it forward to the next generation through, again, mentorship, academia, programmatic support, and through scholarships, and the scholarship through which we've been created through the University Foundation. It was awarded this spring to a Stockton student. So with that note, I am going to welcome up Dr. Joanna Johnson, who has been a fantastic supporter, and like I said before, a woman who's been driving this initiative, just to talk a little bit more about our scholarship program. Dr. Johnson, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Christina, and I would also like to thank Alicia for all of the work that she does. She kind of keeps us all in line where we need to be, and I'm so grateful for that because I'm always saying to her, when is that date? What did we do? She knows what we're doing, and she keeps us on track. The Stockton Women's Leadership was honored to establish an annual scholarship for deserving Stockton students. As many of you know, scholarships relieve the financial burden and provide an opportunity for many people to earn an education. Without assistance, many students have trouble paying for a college degree, which is beneficial in securing a rewarding career. Because of this, I am donating $1,000 to the Stockton Women's Leadership Council Scholarship, and I challenge all of you present today to match my $1,000 fund, and with donations of significance to you. Every dollar matters, and you will be aiding Stockton students in need. Thank you for your support, and there are means of giving your donation, and it can be in any amount, it doesn't matter, just so that we can get to another $1,000 by the end of this day. Now let's get this panel started. And I would like to introduce today's moderator, Associate Professor of Hospitality and Tourism. I just know her as Donna Albano, and she's wonderful. So, Donna, it's all yours.
Are we good? Can you hear me? Great. Alicia, you're going to cue for me? I don't think I have the clicker. Okay, now you get to watch the video. pretty powerful video. Thank you and good morning again. I'm Donna Albano. I'm a faculty member at Stockton University, but I'm also a founding member of the Stockton's Women Leadership Council. I am also the event committee chair, so I hope you enjoyed the pumpkin pancakes and the taco breakfast bar, because the event committee chair had to fight for a good breakfast this morning. So thank you once again for being here. That video is provided by leanin.org, and if you're not familiar with that, it's an initiative of Sheryl Sandberg, who's Facebook's COO. She started leanin.org in 2013 to foster female leadership around the world and to help women achieve their ambitions and to work to create an equal world. So as we prepare to hear today from our distinguished women and to hear their distinguished voices that represent a wide array of perspectives, it's important to reiterate, as the video did, that women are not leaving and we're asking for more. In every discipline, right? From politics to education to startups to Hollywood to agriculture, restaurants, athletics, business, and military. So without further ado, let's hear from our panelists. You have their bios. We created a program. You've seen their bios on the wheel. So my first question is, what don't they know about you, ladies? What don't they know? What's not on the bio? How did you get here, other than saying yes to our invitation, right? So how did you get here on the stage, on this panel? What made you agree? And what's your mission today? What would be your outcome at the end of today's panel? Linda, you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, all. Very, very happy to be a part of this panel. When I thought about my mission, why I'm here, I think just having a dialogue with women regarding many of the issues and topics that we face is so very important. And having a dialogue that will provide some positive, lasting impacts is phenomenal, and I'm glad to be a part of that opportunity. Regarding what you don't know about me, one point I was pondering whether or not I would share this bit of detail, and I decided that it was relevant to me and possibly to others, is the fact that I was a teenage mom at 17 years old. I had a son, and the reason I thought it was relevant is because we all face challenges and obstacles and mountains in our lives. It may not be similar to mine, but just looking back on that experience, a dark, difficult time, and to see how I made it over makes it relevant for others that may face obstacles in their lives. And I would say the big benefit for making it over was never losing sight of my goals, despite the situation and statistics, what statistics and studies would say about me at that particular time. Didn't make a difference, and it didn't matter. And I had a strong support system and was able to overcome that challenge. So that's the big piece that's not actually listed on my bio about me.
Great, thank you.
So I too am happy to be here in the Fannie Lou Hamer room, which I think is a wonderful tribute to such an important person in our nation's history and Atlantic City's history. I'm a Stockton alum, as is mentioned in the bio. Like Linda, and I think like many women, the personal invades the public. And so for me, I don't know if it was an invasion, but I have 3 children, one of whom is adopted. So their care has been something that has been defining my life since 1994. But like I think many women, I also was faced with caring for 2 aging parents, and then a terminally ill husband for 4 years. And then dealing with the grief after my terminally ill husband passed away. And all of these things make it really, really hard to get work done, in case you haven't noticed. But I also think when I look back at how I got here, and I will be honest with you, and this may not be a popular statement, but I'm here because I stand on the shoulders of men who mentored me, almost exclusively. And it's starting with my father, but also professors here at Stockton. My husband, which I think is perhaps one of the most important choices women who want careers make, because if you don't have support at home, it's an uphill battle. But moving forward throughout my career, my dissertation advisor was an African-American man, and throughout my life, I hate to say, women in many professions have been an obstacle to me. And so my purpose here is to first off put that out there. And I think that times have changed significantly when, I'm 54, so when I was in academia in the early years, I think many women thought that they had an obligation of holding women students to a higher standard because they realized how difficult it would be. But also there's this kind of idea of power being a zero sum, and they had to hold on to it. And I think that there's more than enough for everyone. And so nurturing and encouraging and mentoring women, I think, is something that everyone in the room, male or female, should walk away with as a charge.
So well said. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm here today because when someone like Donna Albano asks you to do something, you can't say no. But so today it's very exciting because happening right now, I believe we have the first all-women spacewalk. So we celebrate that. But what brought me here today really is a tribute for those who paid it forward in my life, and I have to give honor to that. So just a real quick little backstory. My mother was one of 12, and she grew up in the Depression era. She was one of 6 daughters and had a very authoritative father who they had a family business in Appalachia, Virginia, a coal mining business, and he demanded that his daughters would go away to college or nursing school because his daughters must be prepared to, they had to have an education so that they could support themselves. His sons would have a job in the family business, but his daughters must be able to take care of themselves and their families in case they had to, because this area was very much of a have and have not area, and his daughters would never be left unprepared to care for themselves. So in the theme of that, my mother did get this education, and as time went on, and the family business then was left to as an inheritance, my grandmother divided up the shares of this business and did not leave it to her children, but left it to her grandchildren by way of the only thing that the shares of this inheritance would be for her grandchildren's education. So the value of education was always a theme in my family, and so I bore the legacy of that. And it wasn't a great gift, it wasn't like there was this bounty of money. But so there were these two themes of the value that my grandfather placed in caring for his daughters and the value of education. And so connecting those dots is really what brought me here today. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share some of that with you.
Good morning. Love seeing all these beautiful, motivated, ambitious women this early in the morning. Thank you guys for coming out. Roxanne Passarella, I'm the president and CEO of FantaSea Resorts, which is a vacation ownership company. We own 3 hotels, 3 management companies, and several other ancillary companies. We have sort of opposite stories. So my family is pretty average middle class, like small town people, good people. They're right there, actually. And so it's interesting because I grew up with a mom, she's sitting right there in the gray, who who actually showed me that powerful women come in all different types, because she did not have a career, but her job and her career was taking care of us. And so I knew that if I ever needed to be picked up from school or, was sick or needed something, she was always there and always available. And I think that gave me a ton of confidence, and it allowed me to feel that I could go out into the world and sort of be anything I wanted to be. I also had a dad, interesting, was very progressive, I think, for his time, because I have 2 brothers, one of which is right there as well. And so I grew up in a household where I never felt like my brothers deserved better treatment than me, or they were expected to go further than me. I think, in fact, and my brother could probably attest to this, I think my dad thought that I would always go further than them, and sort of like told me that was what was going to happen. He's shaking his head. But, my parents, both of them, did not graduate from high school. My brother was the first in our family to go to college, and I'm the second, and I think I'm the first and probably still the only that went to law school. And I used to think in my younger days when I was in law school, I remember having a group of friends in a study group where one's father was a senator, and one's father was a CEO of like DuPont. And I remember thinking, wow, like my dad's an auto mechanic. And I thought it was like a negative, but now looking back, I realized that that was a huge positive, because it taught me things that those kids were not able to learn. So I was, I learned at a very young age how to deal with people of all, races, religions, everything under the sun, because I would hang out at my dad's garage and there would be just people there from all different walks of life. And so, I learned to appreciate people for who they were. I learned to best communicate with all different types of people. And so I look back now and I say that my greatest blessing was that I come from 2 really good people, down-to-earth people, who were able to teach me how to be a good human. Because at the end of the day, I run my companies with the idea always in mind of caring about the people. Because if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be running companies or anything, because it's all about people. And it's their lives and the lives of their children. You just always have to be mindful of that. And I just keep in my mind that whatever decisions I make, I should make on behalf of myself, but also on behalf of them, because I know that it greatly affects the lives of a lot of people. So you can't fake care about people. You either do or you don't, because if you fake care about people, it comes off that way and it's just awful. But if you do, you run your companies in a way that people feel great and appreciated and the culture is good. And, I really feel like at the end of the day, that's really all that you can do to give back in terms of being a leader. And the other thing is just being a really good role model for my daughter, who's sitting right there, and she's on her phone. Emerson, put your phone down. And my niece, who's sitting there, and just because they're watching. And I never a day in my life tell my daughter there's anything that she can't do. She can do anything she wants to do. She's a full-blown career at 8. I mean, she's magnificent and dynamic, and my niece is talented. And so, I don't need to tell them. They're going to go super far in the world, but I just never want them to feel any less. And, the statistics are staggering. I actually read one when I was in bed this morning, that it's going to take over 200 years to fix the gap in terms of pay and gender. That makes me very sad and emotional for people like them, because, I look at my daughter and anyone that surrounds her and I say, she can do it probably better, faster, smarter, and she'll do it in high heels. And knowing my daughter, probably Louboutins. And I just say, why shouldn't she be paid equally to men? And that statistic is just, it's upsetting, but we'll get there. I don't think it's going to take 200 years, because the next generation of Emersons are going to make sure that it's cut in half, right, babe? Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is Nelida Valentin, and thank you to the Stockton Women's Leadership Council for organizing this morning and this conversation. I'm really thrilled to be in a circle of women and men, of course, who are also in the audience, and even more honored to be on this panel with such distinguished women who are doing such incredible work. I really think that women have just this special key sensitivity and have special touches that unless you are one, you can't actually sort of describe what it is like to be in sisterhood and in conversation with women who relate to you, and even if they don't. And so in my life, I over my career, I felt like I didn't really have those kinds of connections, but I'm finding later in life I have, very special circles of women that are part of my life in many different ways, and add to the richness of my life's experience and my sense of humanity. So thank you. I was thinking, I'm an alumni as well. I graduated from Stockton, like Brigid, and I am very honored to serve on the Board of Trustees of Stockton. And for me, that's a special journey because when I first came onto the campus, it was my first time on a college campus, nevertheless, sort of, starting a program here, which is the EOF, the Educational Opportunity Fund program, when I came on campus. And, it was the start of something amazing that I could have never imagined at that time. And I was thinking, as Donna asked, it's like, what don't they know? What don't we all know that's on the bio? And I went through, read everybody's bio, and I read my bio, and looked at all of the things that are described there that I have done. And yes, I have done all of those things, but what don't you know? And I was thinking about the video that we just saw as the introduction. One is, what you don't know is that, I was the first. I have been that first, the first in my family to go to school, to college, the first to graduate from high school, the first still to have a master's degree, the first to, do all of these things like serve on boards and be the first woman on a parking authority board for 10 years, and, and many of the nonprofit boards that I've had the privilege to serve on. But what don't you know, and what doesn't reflect in these bios that talk about our career experiences? And that is, I have felt microaggression. I have felt lonely in the pursuit of all these things that you see on the bio. I've often been told no, and that's not possible, and who do you think you are? You can do this or that. And we've all felt that way in many parts of our lives as we've gone through this journey, but we don't always talk about it. And that's what you don't know. That's what we don't know that shows up in the bio. I teach yoga, and so, and this is, kind of my hobby and passion, but it's also been the one thing that has helped me, that and running, actually, center in a way that I've learned to sort of go inside and really, really pay attention and honor my feelings, and then be able to be authentic about how I share my experiences with others, not expecting that others will be me, right? Other women will be me, but especially for women and the circle of women that I share with, just being keen about really listening and knowing when to share and when to pull back and just to listen, and giving that space for them to go on their journey, and trying to be sensitive to all the differences. So why did I say yes? Well, I'm a trustee and here for one, so I would never say no to Donna for sure, or any of the staff here.
Very powerful over here.
But one of the reasons I also said yes in my heart is because, at this point in my life, I'm 55, and I've had an incredible experience, and it's been hard. So I feel a responsibility to give back and share. There is a saying that says, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? And I feel like as women, we need to step up and tell our stories, to share our experiences. And it's through others hearing stories and experiences that others find that little nugget that they can relate to. And I hope in my mission, my sense of mission, that if I can do that one thing for that one woman, then I feel like I'm walking the path. So,
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Can we just give these women a super round of applause. That was my beyond the bio question, so I'm really glad I decided to ask it. I only have 4 total questions, so I only have 3 left, but as you can see, they take a considerable amount of time. And I promise we're gonna open up for some Q&A, and I hope that you'll step up and take advantage of having this esteemed panel here for some great advice. So question number 2, ladies, reflecting back, describe key points in your journey. So we're looking for maybe motivators, setbacks, pressures that helped you form your path. And we discussed things like work-life balance and the message of hard work, and even just the balance of, you know, work and family. And someone had mentioned something about the cost of delaying, which women often feel the effects of. So fire away on your reflections. We can go right down again unless somebody wants to jump in. Linda, you good? You want to start?
I'm good. So you mentioned, Donna, cost of delaying. I was speaking with Vicki a little bit this morning, and I was telling her that when I had my son, and it was a decision whether or not to go back to school to get my master's degree. I was working for South Jersey Gas Company at the time, and the question was, I'm a single parent, mom's home helping out tremendously. I have career goals, aspirations. Do I put my goals aside for a while and focus on parenting, or do I take that opportunity? And at that time, I did take the opportunity, and I went back to school. I went to, I'm a Stockton alum as well. I didn't mention that earlier. But I went back to school to Rutgers to get my master's degree. And I think the primary reason I did it at that time was working at South Jersey Gas Company. They were having more companies potentially coming in to sell a commodity, not sure about the business, the stability was questionable. Will I have a job? Will I have a future? So it was like, oh, okay, I have a son to take care of, but I also need a job to make sure he's taken care of. So I felt that the education was required in order to effectively parent and take care of my son. So that was a cost delay question. Regarding motivators along the way, I never really had a mentor per se. I had strong women in my lives. I especially remember in my church that were powerful women, and I was able to glean and get information from them and to learn from them. And I think that was a significant motivator to continue to aspire to achieve to higher levels. And the other question, so setbacks, I discussed that earlier.
Good.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I too am first generation college graduate. I'm the youngest of 7, and there's a substantial difference in age between me and the next sibling. So where my brothers and sisters were raised in kind of the 60s, I was raised in the 70s, and my parents couldn't afford for 7 children to go to college. So there were 5 girls and 2 boys. They decided that the boys would go to college because they would have to support families. And back then, at least when the older girls were going to high school, the assumption was that they would get married and have families, unlike Vicki's family. So as it turned out, neither of my brothers went to college. Both became very successful, but by the time I came along, it was one of my sisters who said to my mother, you know, I got some standardized test results back, and my sister said, she will go to college. And in my life, because I came from a background that was professional, but not professional for women per se, one of the most powerful motivators has been someone telling me I could do something. It is just the articulation of, gee, you should go to law school, you should go to grad school. Here's a job that you would be good at. Here's something that you should go on television and talk about politics. Boy, you're a good writer. Are you interested in writing a book? And So my motivation has thankfully, largely, thankfully I say gratefully, has been derived by a lot of compassionate people who said to me, you should do this. And I think it's important that we tell each other, you should do this. Jackie Carroll, you should run for office. So that has been a motivator. A setback, and is it a setback? I don't know. I commuted, for many years, I commuted a lot of hours, sometimes 4 hours a day. My family was down here. I work at Montclair. It's a long commute. This might be viewed as a setback to this day. I actually, this summer, took a solo road trip down to Asheville, North Carolina, and organized my life. Like, I just needed time in a car driving. And that's how I think. And I could think about the next 5 years, and I would literally pull over every hour or so and write down what I had thought. And then, so I learned to use that time, that setback, as to my advantage, but also the kid thing, right? So if you're an academic, or if you are doing work that requires thinking and kind of contemplative time, it's impossible in a house full of children. And so when I was getting my PhD at Temple University, there was a rather prolific scholar who had written something like 11 books, and he was a historian, and he had 8 children, and he was very involved in parenting his children. And I said to him, how is it possible that you have written 11 books? And he said, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I write before anyone gets up, and then I carry on and have a regular day. And I started mimicking that. And so I would get up before everyone else did, do 3 hours worth of work, and then do the day. And that is how I've been able to write 5 books, because it's still not quiet at my house.
That's great, thank you.
I would say in terms of, motivators and setbacks, we think we have this life plan, and it's just we can be in charge of that. And, things happen, and you chart this course out, and then life intervenes in its own way. So I guess it was in the early 90s, and my husband and I had 3 children within 3 years. They were very close together. And at that time, I was home with them, which is really where I wanted to be. My husband has a small business, and we hit a recession. And his business is very closely tied to the housing market. And I really needed a job, really needed to go to work. We needed that stable income. But it was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. I wanted to be an at-home mom with my kids. And lo and behold, I got a call. I had worked part-time at the chamber when I first got married and moved to Cape May County. And they called, and they were asking me to come back and take a full-time position. And I was, no, I can't, I'm home with my kids, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And my son was he would be starting kindergarten. And I kept saying, no, I can't do this, and it kept coming back to me. And I'm a very faithful person, and so as I keep saying, no, I can't do this, the other side of my brain is like, this is happening for a reason, Vicki. You need to pay attention. And so I end up taking the job, which put life on a totally different course for me. And so it was a major setback for me emotionally. My son goes to kindergarten. It was a half-day program. I have to, arrange, after school care. My 2 daughters are put in daycare. And it's like, okay, for the money I'm making, I'm paying for daycare. Somebody else is with my kids more than I'm with them. I'm crying on the way to work. I'm a mess when I get to work. I'm just like, I'm no good to you. What do you want me here for? But, you know, it's what my family needed at the time. And I will tell you, still today, at 34, 32, and 31, every time we're at a crisis point in one of my kids, they're adults, they have kids of their own, but every time something happens, what do? Well, if I hadn't put them in daycare and gone back to work, they wouldn't have this problem right now, because it's on me. Well, that, you know what, because life didn't go as Vicki planned. Who's to blame? Mom's to blame. You know, we do that to ourselves. And we shouldn't. Because did I mess up some of the time? Of course I did. But they also have responsibility for, you know, where they are, the decisions they make. You know, it's that yin and the yang of everything. But, you know, that was a pretty big setback for me, not being in control. And so I had to learn to give that up, but I'm always trying to take it back. I still haven't learned just to give it up.
That's funny. Before Roxanne starts, she was worried that if we were going to have some honest conversations today. Are you worried?
Yeah.
Are you worried?
No, I'm good. Actually, it's funny. Donna said to me, Roxanne, you're on the panel, so how much realer could it get? I mean, I am always the one in meetings and different things, but I'm also on the foundation board at Stockton, and that was sort of a full circle moment for me when I was appointed, because I'm also a Stockton alum. And I remember being, you know, coming here and thinking like, oh God, I hope I have like enough money to cover the tuition check. And, you know, then just walking in, being a member of the board, it was just, you know, pretty humbling experience. And just goes to show you that it doesn't matter where you came from, it just matters, you know, where you're going and where you get. So let's see, motivators. So I didn't really need many. I was always a pretty motivated person. I kind of always pulled that from myself. But I would say, like, as time went on, my passion fueled my motivation, because I originally thought that I wanted to be a criminal lawyer, and I went to law school, worked in a criminal court for a year, and said to myself, I am not cut out for this. I just felt honestly sorry for a lot of the people, you know, that were in the court. I thought that they didn't have the same, you know, foundation I did. And I think people live their lives and do things from their perspective, from their place in life. And so could I relate to the boy with a disability that was selling pot on the street corner? No, I personally couldn't, but could I understand? I could. So that wasn't really for me. So I decided that I was going to go into the private sector, found a job at the company that I'm currently with, and met my then mentor, who was aging, had 2 kids, who had 0 interest in the company because he was a very, very wealthy man and had made their lives fairly easy. And so they didn't really have to work, and they didn't want to. And at that moment, I think I learned a really valuable lesson, which is that I will never give my kids so much that they don't have to do anything. Absolutely never. Because that creates a whole other slew of issues and problems. But so aging mentor, I said, you know, there is definitely an opportunity here. And I just went to work. I put my head down. People say, how did you do it? I say, good old-fashioned elbow grease. That's the truth. I mean, I just worked my butt off all hours of the night. Before I had kids, I just worked as hard as I could. And I put my head down. Next thing time I looked up, I was in a whole different place. Just this past December, so that was 16 years ago, just this past December, I purchased all of the companies from my then mentor. So that was also a pretty humbling experience and a full circle type moment. So that's what I'm doing now. In terms of setbacks, I think I'm in the season of setbacks, honestly. I don't feel like I had a lot up until now. But I feel like now I have them every day. So I think, I'm probably the only one on the panel that has small children. That's challenging all by itself, especially sort of living up to what people think should be your role as a mom. I don't really know who created that definition. It's ridiculous, whoever did. I'd like to look it up in Webster's and see like what that says. But if it probably should be changed, because the way that I parent my children might not be the way you do, or it definitely certainly isn't the way my mom did. But it's my way, and my children feel love, and they are flourishing, academically and personally. So I think, just overcoming what people try to impose on you as a society. And believe it or not, and you probably know this, that most of that, those types of things come from people closest to you. So people that you think are your dear friends and care about you, they're the first to judge. And that's another thing that I've learned probably in my season of setbacks. And, just coming to all those realizations, I don't necessarily think that they're setbacks, just, I guess, realizations that are things that, could be hurtful, but I'm using them as like fuel to just be better and not be that way. So, I would say I was fortunate enough not to have many in my life, but I think now I'm just sort of living through a lot of them and just really trying to know who I am as a person, as a woman, as a mother, as a CEO, as a friend, as a partner, all these things. I think, we play all these roles to different people, and just being mindful that I have to do it the best I can, because all the people that close in my life deserve the best of me. The people in my company also deserve the best of me, and just not letting people that hate get in the way of that, or my feelings, toward anything that they're saying just need to be my own, and I don't need to buy into any of that. And I would say, like, to the young girls in the room, that's like one of the most important lessons. Just be who you are, because that's your truth. And if anybody has a problem with that, they can kiss it. I mean, what does it really matter? It's your life. You only get one. Live it to the fullest. Enjoy it. Love the people that love you. The people that don't, who cares? And just understand that people will value you and look at you and perceive you from their place in life, their perspective. Sometimes they don't even mean it, but it's just what they know. So hopefully when they know better, they'll do better. Who said that? Maya Angelou? Somebody really cool. And, I also surround myself with a lot of men that understand the things that I think I go through, and other women in pretty prestigious positions go through. I have a lot of them that showed up today. There's Ray McCline. He owns the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, and he's a great friend. And he's always there for me. I get morning texts. Get up, champ. Time to knock him out. But it's people like that you need around you to remind you that we're fighting the good fight here. So.
Great job. We got your back, too.
Yeah, thank you.
Nelida?
Sure. In terms of points along my journey, as I said, I was the first one in my family to go to college, and it's when I reflect back, it's a real humbling story for me. My mom was taken out of school in Puerto Rico at first grade, and I think that she lived a life really wanting to have gone to school, not only, forget college, just finish regular school. And she, in spite of that, she was primarily monolingual, so I was her interpreter at 32 Green Street in Newark, which is the welfare office then, where there was no one that was Spanish speaking. And fourth grade, fifth grade, I was the one who would go with her to interpret for her as we kind of lived our lives. And she struggled through, lots of different challenges in her life, coming out of her experience of not having gone to school, not really really had the opportunities that I feel fortunate to have. So I I live my life in such sense of gratitude. And we talk about motivators. I mean, my motivation is this sense of gratitude that I get to live this life in a way that when I look back and I don't compare, but when I look back, I could appreciate, how fortunate, I am to have these opportunities. And, as I've gone through that journey, I mean, when I came to Stockton, like I said, it was the first time I was on a college campus. I mean, I didn't have the opportunities to visit campuses and try to decide. I was here on financial aid. And one of the things about that experience is, and talk about a motivator, I mean, there was this fear of not making it somehow. And so I would go on hypermold. Like I took all my courses and I worked 2 jobs and I made sure that I was going to, I had money for food and all of these things that, I look at my son now, takes quite for granted. And as I've gone through all this journey, I feel like there are different points in which, because of that experience, have kind of helped me plug along. At the same time, it's made a very lonely journey because my sort of setback, if you will, my challenge is that in order for me to have this life, I had to walk away from my family. I mean, they did not understand this experience. And so I had to make some decisions that said, I'm leaving Newark, I'm going to college, and I may not be back. And I really didn't come back. And I think that, sort of set this whole, trajectory that meant that, I didn't know what was before me. And when I think, the people that have come into that pathway have been so amazing in my life to help me get to that next level. And many of them have been women, like amazing women that didn't tell me what I should know, but they modeled what I should know. And understood when I was going through hard times and sort of stepped in and were kind and helpful and generous and just saw me along the way. And so, I'm really grateful for that. I think the other part that I wanted to say about, the choices that we make, for me, given my background and experience, I grew up in a Latino family. We're all about lots of kids and being around family. So when I came to Stockton, this was the first time that I didn't have a lot of my people around me, and that was hard. And it also meant that my idea of family, like having children and getting married and all of these things that, we have in our hearts, in whatever way that is, was not possible for me. So I actually had my son, Emilio, at 35. I was actually 36. And so he's a blessing to me, but I feel like, when I look at the balance of my life, I mean, I did defer family and having a family and being in relationship for these other things that, that I was pressing for out of fear that I might not make it through, that I had to just keep plugging along. But even so, I feel like still the motivator is this sense of gratitude. Sometimes we just really need to stop and say, wow, I have today. And yoga helps with that, sort of this sense of, we have today, right now is what we have. And how do we take that in, have a sense of gratitude for the things that we can control, and be open to giving our gifts and sharing our gifts with others, particularly other women, and continue walking and take those things that we put in our baskets and give them back out, because it comes back in 100-fold. And it is a life journey. It's life. And, one of the things that I think about today, and particularly when I teach yoga, that I tell my students is, this is life, and what comes up must come down, and it's okay. The question is, how do we live through the down to get us through as part of life to the next one, because it will go up. And so that's how I think of it.
I'm feeling super inspired. Thank you. So with your help, let's get through the third question so we can open it up to our audience. And talking a little bit about role modeling, we have a mentoring component, as you've heard, of the Stockton's Women Leadership Council, but sometimes just by your station in life and your title and where you are
just a role model for better or for worse, right? So share your thoughts on that, just kind of being a role model for better or for worse. And then if you have some wins that you recall being like really formative in your life, you want to share them, how you pay those forward in your own life and career.
Okay.
Rather be asking than answering, that's really, go ahead, sorry.
Regarding being a role model, I just wanted to share who was my biggest role model. I so born and raised in Atlantic City, and I went to Indiana Avenue School on Indiana Avenue, 6th grade teacher, Mr. Randall. And many of us that was in that class many years ago still talk about how inspirational this man was in our lives. It was a 10-month school year, and he literally shaped our minds, which impacted our destiny. And I'm a firm believer that where I sit today, what's been accomplished, that was a foundation for growth. So from that experience, I learned how very important having positive role models in our young people's lives and even in our lives to help us to achieve our goals is extremely important. So regarding being a mentor, I'm not currently mentoring anyone, but I feel like every single day of my life, in essence, I am. When I go into the workplace, my attitude, my demeanor, how I carry myself, how I respond to situations that may not necessarily be pleasant, I'm being a role model. Our lives, even with social media, more people than others with posts, our lives are like open books, right? And people are constantly watching what we do and what we say and how we react. And in this world, we need a lot of positive influences. I'm sure we all would agree. So being a model, being a role model where I can express positive things and be positive is great. One thing that I do that was mentioned in my bio is I'm a part of Women's Shelters Ministry with my church, and I've done that for many years. And I think twice a month, on that Monday when I walk through that door, I'm being a role model. Just being there to offer encouragement, and people that have found themselves in difficult and hard times, being able to give them a hug and say, sharing my story that I shared earlier, life is not over. There's still opportunities. You can go back to school. You can achieve. All those fashions of modeling is extremely important. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Exactly what I was talking about. Not formality, right? Just because who you are and what you represent. Brigid?
So my take on this is just a little different. I'm a political scientist. That's what I kind of do for my day job. And in 2005, I was at our national meeting, the American Political Science Association, and attended a panel with researchers who were looking at some of the studies that they had done about women's ambition when it came to politics. And basically the research then said that young women and girls had less political ambition than their male counterparts. And so this panel was kind of organized around the notion of what can we do to fix this? And the leaders of the panel grabbed a bunch of media people. And basically the idea was that women and girls did not see people like them on television. Back then we got most of our news from television. And they essentially put out a call to encourage people like me, professors sitting in our offices or at our homes doing research, that when reporters call, to answer the call and build relationships with reporters, because increasingly when women and girls see women talking about politics, it increases their ambition. It ascribes to them the idea that they can do politics. And so I kind of took this as a charge, and in 2005 started working a little bit more formally, kind of in a more concerted effort to build relationships with reporters. And the entire goal of that has been for women to see more women on the news And I mean, it hasn't been me, but it obviously has changed a great deal, where you see many, many, many more women doing political commentary. So in terms of role modeling, that has been important. In terms of wins, you know, I write an American government textbook. It is one of the best used books in the country, and I'm really proud of that. I'm particularly proud that I put the book together, and it's published with a major publisher, and it's the only all-women's political science author team in the country. And so, you know, I like to think that there are women sitting reading that book who may notice, oh, look at the pictures of the authors. They kind of look like my mom. And hopefully that kind of, yes, this is something that you can do. But still, the biggest wins for me, I go to the League of Municipalities meeting every year, and I see my students, both men and women, who are doing really, really cool jobs. And you know, we take an annual selfie and everything, and that's kind of one of my highlights.
I think having a mentor, being a mentor, is extremely important, whether it's in a formal role or, as has been mentioned, is in an informal role. For me, you know, the most significant mentor was my own mother, because she was a working mom, and she was an incredible person, just in seeing, you know, just in so many ways. I mean, as a mom, but also just seeing how hard she worked as an employee, as a co-contributor to our family, but she was called home when her father was ailing, and, you know, just making that, she and my father making that huge sacrifice. And a lot of these are stories to me because they were before I was ever born into our family. And, you know, those stories really shaped my life and the kind of partnership I wanted when I got married, and the type of you know, career woman I wanted to be. And I find myself, as I've had young employees and the opportunity to work alongside young people in some of the projects and organizations that I've worked with, really enjoying not mentoring someone in the job, but trying to help them see the whole scope of, when you're at work, you have a responsibility to be all in at work, but in your personal life, you have a responsibility to be all present in your personal relationship as well. And I think it's really hard in today's world of 24-hour social media, and, you know, everything is interrupting all of our relationships. Work is interrupting our personal time is interrupting our work time. Those are really hard boundaries to keep straight. And, you know, we are being watched all of the time. And I think it's very, very important to help model really what it's like to have integrity in the workplace, and to be, you know, be a ever-present parent, you know, when you're with your family. And I think it's incredibly difficult, and it's one of the most important things that we can do, is to be a good role model in those aspects.
Well said.
So I think formally, I am currently a mentor for our Women's Leadership Council, a student from Stockton. I also was a mentor for 3 different kids through the Champions of Youth, which my company helped found and begin. We gave the financial award they needed to begin that program. And so those things are great, and I love them, I enjoy them, and I think they're meaningful. But I think on a daily basis, what's most important to me is just mentoring the people around me. And I say that, you know, sort of lightly, because I also learn so much from them. You know, when I walked into my company, every executive was a male. Today, I think, other than one sitting in this room, every executive is a female. So that has changed. That wasn't on purpose. It just happened to be that the people that I surrounded myself with and trusted and I felt were very loyal to me happened to be female, with the exception of one. And you know, that works for me. And I talk to people all the time about this theory that like I sort of have in my head. It's sort of like a mountain theory, right? So I always say, like, if you're climbing up the mountain, you know, if you're an ambitious person like I am, and probably like most people in this room, you are like trekking as fast and as hard as you can to get to the top, right? Because the top is the pinnacle. That's why climb the mountain if you don't want to get to the top. And you know, I would say to people that ask me today, when you're climbing up the mountain, sort of look around, smell the air, enjoy the roses, you know, just really enjoy the journey, because when you get to the top, it's anticlimactic, okay? I remember like being there and being like, wait, is this the top? Like, this is what I thought was the top, but I don't feel any different. So I think, you know, enjoying the journey, just really respecting the journey. But then here's like the key to this and how it really relates to mentoring, is that I always say most people, when they get to the top of the mountain, because it is a lonely journey and it is a like a lone wolf type of scenario a lot of times, they get to the top, and when you're at the top, what happens, right? Everybody's gunning for you. They want the top. There's only one pinnacle. There's only one person that can stand there. So everybody wants to knock you off, and they want to take your spot, right? So I have lived my life and my professional journey in such a way that I had everybody that was with me, and a lot of them are here in the room today, climbing up the mountain at their pace with me, right? So when I get to the top, which is the pinnacle that I perceive, which has changed 1,000 times and is still ever changing, I get to the top and I say, you can come and get me, but you're gonna have to get through the 20 people that are surrounding me before you can touch me. And the reason that I have those people is because I respect them, I'm loyal to them as well, and I have brought them up with me in my journey, which I think is the most important thing you can do. So just remembering it's not about you, because there's not really anything I've done in my life that I've done fully alone. I've had the benefit of all these amazing people with me that have helped me. And so I challenge somebody to come and take my spot, because like I said, they're gonna have to get through a lot of people first. So just being mindful of being good and decent and having your people with you and, you know, creating their own successes along the way. And by the way, my pinnacle has changed 1,000,000 times, and I actually have a new one at the moment, so we'll see how that goes. And you know, lastly, I would probably say that, again, really motivated, ambitious people, we always are looking at the goal, right? And we're doing it in such a way that we think others would want us to do it and others would expect from us. The one thing that we always forget, ladies especially, is to be happy. So like I'm at a place right now where I'm gonna find my, you know, own happiness and not what other people impose on me, because everybody has an opinion, but just what feels good in my own heart, and that's how I'm gonna live my life. So I think that's a lesson I learned. I think you learn it, you know, later generally, but if I can help any of you learn it sooner, then I'm glad that I was here today. Just make yourself happy. Be happy. Don't hurt anybody in the process. But if it doesn't hurt anybody and it makes you feel good, then so be it.
Thank you.
So when I was in my early 20s, I was in a program that was started as a result of a book that was published by the Center for Creative Leadership about breaking the glass ceiling for women. And it was a group of amazing women And I was very young compared, they were all in their 30s, 40s, some 50s. And for those of you who know about breaking the glass ceiling, I mean, this is like 3 decades later, and we're watching this video this morning that really speaks to this sense around, where women are today, and how far behind we are, even with the strides that we made. And what that says to me is that, it's a process. It takes time, and it takes all of our voices and our engagement, with each other and in the world around us to break that glass ceiling, to make those kinds of stories, that data that we see so much better. And so I'm very hopeful for our future, and for the young women in the room, I am totally confident and extremely hopeful that, you're walking that path, and you're, and bringing us sort of over that hump, so to speak. One of the things about that leadership program, many of the components of that leadership program were about, how you prepare yourself as a woman, in terms of public speaking and many other kinds of skill sets. And there was always this sense that you kind of have to work 20 times harder, not just as a woman, but as a Latina woman than everybody else. So if people sleep 8 hours, you sleep 5. There's this whole hyper sense around what it takes to be successful as women. Thankfully, I think 3 decades later, we're kind of not in that place. I don't believe today that you have to lose sleep. Actually, I think you need to have more sleep and work towards a more balanced life. And so when I think of mentorship, one of the key things I wanted to share about that experience is that there was this idea, very studied by the Center for Creative Leadership, that mentorship is important, but can't be forced. And, and in my experience over the years, I love, and I've served on many nonprofit boards. Last night I was, at an event for the Boys and Girls Club of Mercer County, where they awarded, 2 amazing people. One is a couple who served as a mentor to a young man, and a woman who actually serves as a big for another young woman, and these things are important. It's wonderful that institutions and nonprofit organizations and programs across our community have these structured mentorship programs. But I think that the way that mentorship happens is not that linear. In my experience, this idea of mentorship can't be forced. I am not that model for every woman. I am a certain model for many women in my life and in my work world and in the worlds that I kind of evolve in. And I think that my responsibility, if I were going to think about mentorship, is I think my responsibility is to really first listen to myself and be aware of where I stand, and then know and really feel intuitively from within my heart when I can help someone else, when I can sort of take that mentorship activity and help someone find their own voice. Because if we can do that 20 times over, we're fitting in this society, and we're sort of fitting our roles and what we're best at, rather than sort of, forcing this sense that, you should do as I do. And it's a humbling experience, and it's something that I work on every day. But, it's kind of how I think of mentorship today. And most important for me, I really, like many have said up here, is I try to model my values, right? And I know where my experiences are, and I don't try to talk about those things that I don't know, right? Because that's not helpful. There are so many other skill sets that other people have, other women have, that are so important. And if they find someone who helps them get there, go for it. I have a certain place, and so if I can help someone else, another woman, find her voice, I think I'm doing that every day. And if I could do that every day, then I think, I'm grateful, and I'm walking that path.
Really great, really powerful. So you've been an amazing audience. You could hear a pin drop in here, and none of you are really on your phone or anything. I'm really impressed. So thank you for that. But I really hope you have some questions and would really like to address some of these
fabulous women up here. There is a microphone on either side. Alicia McMacken has one. If you want to raise your hand, she can run on. All right, so great. I'm glad we have some questions. Jen, you're going to help? We have right here. Go ahead, raise your hand. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. Hi. I'm Leslie Jesperson. I am just curious, a question for anyone who would like to answer. If you encountered like a significant failure in your career journey and how you navigated that, whether you just refused to accept that failure and kept going for the same thing, or you took it as a sign like, all right, this is not where I'm supposed to be going, let me reroute. So.
Thanks, Leslie. Who wants it?
So I was thinking when we were talking about wins, how I sort of experienced what could have been considered a failure that ultimately turned into a win. So currently I work for Atlantic County Utilities Authority. I've been there about 4 years. Previously I was working for the water utility here in Atlantic City for 14 years. And with the turmoil of the city and the finances, it was communicated that they may privatize the authority and therefore downsize those positions, no more jobs. So I find myself, I guess potentially you could look at this as a failure because now I need to feed my family, I need my job, my husband's great, but we need 2 incomes. So now I'm faced with a question, do I stay in a sinking ship, so to speak, or do I look for other opportunities? So at that particular time, I can view that as a failure and as a struggle, but as a result of that, I then had to look for other opportunities, and that's how I ended up where I currently am. And even though at the time it wasn't really comfortable, but a potential failure turned into a huge win because who I am today after 4 years is amazing. Then if I would have stayed in a sinking ship, my leadership skills wouldn't be where they are. I wouldn't be the type of person that I am. I wouldn't have the confidence that I have. I wouldn't have the skill set that's been approved upon. So that for me, that was a potential failure that turned into a huge win.
I say I don't lose, I learn. So I don't have any failures to talk about because they're just lessons.
I ran for freeholder in 1995, and I lost here in Atlantic County. I lost very narrowly, and at that point, I was an untenured professor and the mother of a 1.5-year-old, and I had to make a decision about whether I wanted to do that, to continue to do that. And I had serious political aspirations. And honestly, I backburnered them, or at least I guess I walked away from them because I haven't done that, and it's been a very long time. But I decided that the lifestyle when you have small children, it's not compatible. I needed to publish in order to get tenure, and I needed to get tenure because we needed our income. So that was a failure, and I'm not saying that I'm like grateful for it. It happened and you had to deal with it, and so you roll with the punches.
Mm-hmm. And I would add, I've had so many different career experiences. If I were to look at a good handful of them, I could categorize them as failures. I spent a great part of my career in state service, and many of those positions later in my career were appointed positions. And it's an interesting experience when you're in public service and in an appointed position because, I worked really, really hard, and I did amazing work and built up amazing people and did succession planning in departments and all kinds of work. And then, of course, an administration changes, and it doesn't matter what you've done in many instances. At least that's how it felt in my heart and in my system. And I'd end up, figuring out, well, where am I walking next? One of the biggest, I think, experiences that stands out in my mind is at one point I had gone through this transition at the Department of Transportation. There's an administration change, And I ended up in the city of Newark working for then Cory Booker, who's now senator, and he was mayor. And I was running the workforce investment system, the workforce development system. And, then, he moved he won a second term, and then the next, thing we know, he's going to be senator. And of course, there's a new mayor that comes on board. And sure enough, I had made a whole bunch of investments. I was working 24/7, and here I was, right? And so, and then I ended up at NJIT, at this amazing sort of nonprofit that was part of the university. But it wasn't a fit for me, so that just went sour. I just couldn't fit in that world. What I've learned from that is to trust myself, because sometimes we get so focused on defining where it is that we need to be and what we're going for, without paying attention that maybe this is not the right place. Maybe the fact that it all turned upside down isn't a failure. It's really a blessing. We just don't know it. We can't see. But if we can trust ourselves enough to keep walking, we're gonna find our place and our places. And I believe too, at this point in my career and in my life, that where that is changes, because we're living life, and I always say, what comes up comes down. So it's all part of our life experience. The question is, what are the questions that we ask ourselves? What do we believe in those moments that we can sort of listen to that help us walk through?
I know I'm not on the panel, but my family ran a business, a family-owned and operated business, and everybody said, "Oh, your family ran a business," and my family ran a business into the ground. Quite frankly, we had no idea what we were doing, none, and it was just this amazing learning experience of what not to do, and the lessons in my life 20 years later that constantly come back because of that failure. Just resonate in so many ways of my life, from my teaching experiences. I have students, alum in the audience that have heard the stories, for me to be able to talk in front of students about what not to do and what was just a terrible failure and why, to be able to reflect on it now. And then, of course, the challenges of trying to write it, right? Because some things, we got right, but not enough to save the business. So yeah, I agree. It's just chalk it up. It was terrible at the time, but chalk it up. So, like I said, not on the panel, but thanks. We have some more questions? Can I see some hands? Great, thank you. We got Eugene, hold on.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Barr. I'm not the professor at Stockton. I am actually an attorney. I work at Cooper Levinson. And we've heard from the panel a lot of discussion about mentorship, and which is also a way of networking, which is incredibly important. But as leaders, I was wondering if you could touch on how you have used the power of the purse, that is, engage other women in business relationships, to not only using the power of the purse, but also to help other women in the business world and in their careers. For example, Brigid, you were talking about writing the textbook and engaging other female authors. Could other members of the panel just touch on that? Thank you.
I think, through sort of what I said before, empowering women within my organization, because again, I can only do what's within my realm of possibilities and in my life. And so just really focusing on bringing them up the ladder with me. It's interesting because I always say that, people generally make the comment that being a woman in business is detrimental and it's difficult. And I actually say it's my greatest asset. I think that women are nurturing by nature, and I think that's helpful in business relationships and negotiating deals. And when you're negotiating a deal, especially a big one, people want to feel comfortable with you, and they want to feel like you are honest, and they want to feel like they want whatever you're trying to achieve as well, like you both win. So I think being a female in that way helps me every day. So I'm grateful for that. And I think, using that, those skills to make sure that other women come up the ladder with me is really the best that I can do in my life, and I focus on doing that every day.
I would say that, for me, the best opportunity that I have is using my organization, the Cape May County Chamber of Commerce, to provide those opportunities. And networking is one of the best things that we have to offer. And for women, and of course, and for men, to use those opportunities to connect and to make those build those relationships. But in particular, for the women who are involved in the business community, we have a Women in Business conference, and I am not ashamed to say, I'm very proud to say, it is by far the single most successful event that we host every year, and it is the first event that I implemented when I became the president of the organization. That is, has my footprint on it, or thumbprint on it, I guess I should say. And it never fails. A lot of the men will say, when are we having the Men in Business conference?
Tell them every day. Yeah, exactly.
But, and it is not exclusively for women, men are always invited to attend. But there is a reason that we have a Women in Business conference, and that is really to elevate the conversation of the importance, just like we are talking about today, the important role that women play. Play is not the right word, excuse me for saying it that way, but that we bring to the workplace, and have always had in the workforce, that we have in the conversation, the sacrifices that are made on both ends, and that now we are seeing that sometimes men are taking the paternity leave and staying home when the baby is born, or the adoption is made. I have a son-in-law that I was thrilled when my daughter and son-in-law adopted. He was able to take paternity leave, and I think that that's a wonderful thing. So anyway, to your point though, we do have those opportunities for women, but sometimes it does take a bit more encouragement for women to step out of their comfort zone, and it takes a little more coaching to to start those conversations, and encouragement to bring someone with you. We have an ambassadors program to kind of help initiate those conversations, so that someone who's a little more familiar within the organization to help them get those conversations started. So we realize that sometimes there are just some comfort zones that have to be, we have to close those gaps. But that's not just a women's issue. A lot of men are shy and uncomfortable starting conversations. If you're not talking about a subject matter that they're really familiar with, they don't necessarily know how to promote themselves in their business as well. And, so it's not just about, women needing to have that encouragement, men need it as well.
So I just wanted to add, so as far as when we were talking about like work-life balance, and for me, giving back, having an opportunity to give back helps to balance me so that I can then be effective in other areas, whether it's home, work, spouse, whatever. So when thinking of giving back, I think about Women United. Megan McNeely is here. She's a leader. Through Women United is an opportunity to actually, one of the main pillars is early childhood education, but there are other initiatives surrounding women and giving back to women, such as women going back out into the workforce. Some new initiatives that are evolving through Women United that will be very instrumental in offering assistance to women.
When I think of power of the purse, I think of opportunity. I think about all the layers that evolve within that sense. And as a general principle, I have a few kind of values that I live by. I work today for a community foundation, and we pride ourselves in being sort of linkage and leverage type people where, you know, we're sort of using our social capital in ways to really make connections happen. And it's how I also live my life. I feel really fortunate to have worked in different types of industries over my career and with many kinds of different issues, and from North to South Jersey, and, you know, and statewide and out of the state. And what I find more is that it's my responsibility when I'm in a circle, for example, to make sure that I introduce a woman to someone, a man, or, you know, to introduce people in that circle. And, you know, that's power of the purse, sort of using your ability to leverage connections so that other people can benefit in ways that may not otherwise happen if you hadn't made that kind of connection, right? Mm-hmm. In parts of my career, you know, if I'm going to a conference and I've purchased a ticket for another woman, or I've invited a young woman with me to experience it, which may not have been an opportunity that would have happened. When I think about, you know, people I meet and I get their cards, I might jot down when I met them and where, and sure enough, somewhere weeks down the way, there's something that comes up where I then can send an email and link that person. And to me, that's power of the purse. It's somewhat about making those connections and using our, you know, our value, our influence in ways that could be helpful and can really connect others to each other.
Speaking of power of the purse, Johanna, thank you for the donation, by the way. And I think just to sort of get it started, I'm going to match your donation. I'll make a $1,000 donation on behalf of my beautiful daughter, so that we can help her maybe by a few years cut this gap in whatever's happening in pay, women versus men. So we'll make our contribution too. And thank you for starting that effort. And we'll do that today.
Thank both of you. Thank you. Did you want to comment, Brigid?
I just wanted to add, and I'm not bashing the video, but let me bash the video for just 1 second. Not the video per se, but to Jennifer's point, so Sheryl Sandberg, everyone knows her as Ms. Lean In. Until this year, 2 of the 8 positions on the board of Facebook were women. Oh, wow. Here is a woman who has made a second career out of advocating for women and women's parity. And on the board in which she is COO, until this year, there was another woman added, but now there are a grand total of 3. And so my point is that I was for many years the only, and in my department, they had a woman. Well, if you have one, what do you need another one for? I mean, come on, right? That's how it works. And like that, you know, that was how it was for many years. And then suddenly I thought, that's not how it's supposed to be. And so one of the least rewarding forms of work in academia is being on the hiring committee. Right, Susan? It is torture because you interview people, you interview 10 people, and it's coordination and you're basically running logistics. But I realized that until I was on the hiring committee that we weren't going to see any more women. And so I did my time and we got 2 more on board, so I'm no longer the only, and hopefully one of them will take over some of that work. But it really makes a difference to have a woman in the room saying, how about her? Mm-hmm. How about her? Because I think that even among the best hirers, people automatically choose people that they're comfortable with, that are like themselves. Like them, yeah. And it may not be overt racism or gender-based discrimination, but they're comfortable with people like themselves. Mm-hmm. And so we need to be there so that we can pick people like ourselves.
Jean, you have a question? You want the mic? Alicia's coming.
Thank you so much for all of your excellent commentary today. I really, really enjoyed it. My question is for Dr. Callahan-Harrison. I think what you alluded to just now again in response is the importance of articulation and how that can be such an influencer, you know, just in how people proceed in anything, their day, their family, their life, career. And I noticed in your bio, I'm not sure the exact phrase, but you were like an expert in millennial politics? Okay. So I always have a problem with how common and frequent it is for people to bash millennials. I'm like, what? Because everyone I meet in that age category, I'm like so super impressed by. So I wonder in terms of political future and this, layer of our society getting involved, and going back to articulation, what do we do to recognize their amazing value, and how do we change that because I'm pretty sick of people bashing millennials. So that's my comment and my question for you.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm with you, and I'm also incredibly impressed right now on college campuses. This year we're beginning to see the next generation, Generation Z, which is in some ways very similar, but also very unique. And the reality is we don't need to do anything because they are such a force. They are the people that are going to be determining the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. They are already determining our economy. They've changed our workforce culture. They've changed our political culture in the blink of an eye. Very long-held tenets of our national agenda, things like gay marriage, things like marijuana legalization. They've upended the entire political spectrum. And with Generation Z, I think they will continue to do so with issues like gun control and climate change. They are so large and so diverse and so cohesive in many ways in their opinions that we're kind of, I don't want to say fading out, but they're muscling us out, much in the way that the baby boomers did to the silent generation before them. But I think a lot of the negativity, I'm the parent of a millennial and the parent of 2 Gen Zers, and much of the reason they are bashed is because of how we parented them, right? Because when you think about it, they're the first generation in the history of the world that was almost universally wanted by their parents. It's the first generation that came after the advent of widely available birth control. So we coddled them, we helicoptered them, and then when they live like coddled helicoptered children, we resent them for it. But that's on us.
So I think we're close to wrapping up. Do we have any mentees in the room today? I know my mentee is here. If you're here, could you stand up if you're a mentee this round? Melissa, who's here from our mentee? Any other mentees? Thank you, thank you. Do not be afraid, right? Our future is solid, and maybe it's the academics in the room who work with these young people every day, but she's more my mentor than I'm her mentor when I read her bio and some of the things that she aspires to do. So the mentees in this room, thank you for being here. And they're women, thank you. Thank you. We're in great shape. We are in great shape. So go ahead, Christina, you want to?
The program, and I just want to say, Donna, thank you so much for
pleasure.
Thank you so much for everything and for organizing the panel, and thank you again. If we could just have another round of applause for the folks on our panel. So I just want to reiterate real quick. So Donna talked about the mentoring aspect. Another big part is the scholarship. We had Dr. Johnson kick off $1,000. Roxanne, thank you so much for that. The scholarships go towards student in needs, women in need. One of the stories that we can tell is that we were able to give a scholarship to a young woman who was commuting from northern New Jersey, didn't have the ability to stay on campus and needed money basically to just graduate. So we helped with her tuition through the Stockton Women's Leadership Council. So this program is not about asking for money, but since Dr. Johnson, helped out with it, and Roxanne committed. We have 2 devices in the back there. Even $5 helps. It goes towards the students, especially those in need. And like I said, these students are, some of them are mentors or future mentors and future mentees, and anything we can do to help them, we sincerely appreciate that opportunity. So thank you so much for spending your Friday with us here at the lovely Stockton University campus. We appreciate all the inspiration. Please go out, make a difference today, live your life to the fullest. Please stick around, say hi to each other, shake each other's hands. Part of this opportunity is also for getting to know each other as well, because you're gonna not only be the leaders in our community, but also meeting the future leaders. So take 5 extra minutes, just say hi to each other. And like I said, thank you so much for coming, and we really appreciate you participating.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Alicia McMacken.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, ladies. We have some lovely parting gifts for the ladies. We'll be giving them some appreciation gifts. And thank you, Patty Ferry, Director of Catering, for this amazing breakfast and Charcoal's Catering. So thank you.
Be careful.